All right, everyone. It's the last panel of day 2. Hopefully you had a good couple of days coming to Modular Summit.
Woo!
Exactly.
Modular Summit, yeah.
Let's.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
This is the 3rd annual. I guess I have to call it annual now. Endgame panel at the Modular Summit.
The metagame is what.
Metagame. Sorry. Metagame this time. But we've had this.
The inaugural metagame.
This is the inaugural metagame, but oftentimes this panel has been about monolithic versus modular architectures in some shape or form. Unfortunately, this time we don't have Anatoly, so I will do my best to be a Solana edgelord if I can. But we'll see. You can grade me at the end on a scale of 1 to 10.
1 to Toly.
1 to Toly. There we go. 1 to Toly. It's good. I think the first thing that is probably worth talking about, is what are the top 3 events that have happened over the last 3 years in both the monolithic and modular ecosystems. I'll take the monolithic. I'll be the fake Anatoly. So for the 3 of you, kind of like what are some of the big highlights within the modular world that you've seen, and what are the kind of big things you think went well?
I mean, for me, it's got to be the rise of roll-up as a service providers, because if you think about it, it's kind of crazy. Because I mean, when I first created Celestia, my vision has always been like one day you'll be able to go on a website, and then you'll be able to click a button and launch your own blockchain that is completely secure and decentralized. And like this was before we had roll-up frameworks. And to me, it's kind of crazy that's actually possible today now, or has been possible for the last year. And there's actually like over 50 roll-ups deployed in this way. Like you can actually go to Caldera or Gelato or Conduit's website and like deploy your own blockchain in the form of a roll-up in like 1 minute just by clicking a button. To me, that's actually crazy.
All right.
Cool. Yeah. I guess there's been a few things over the last few years, and I don't know if we consider app chains, modular ecosystem, but I would. The original, incomplete modularity,
they're the OG.
Yeah, OG modularity to be completed by, which has been completed by the Celestia vision. I mean, the 3 big things in my mind that sort of happened in the Cosmos ecosystem in the last 3 years. One was really the launch of IBC, which was concomitant with the launch of Osmosis. They kind of happened together pretty much 3 years ago, almost to the day, or a couple weeks. And that like really, kicked off the idea that the reality that you could have all these like independent things, modular pieces that could really interoperate with each other. So that was amazing. The second one's a bit sadder, and that was the Terra collapse, which was a very humbling moment, for all of us to get kind of wrecked like that and have, decentralized stablecoin just all of a sudden disappear. But it also demonstrated the fault tolerance element of the kind of modular stack, right? One piece kind of fails and goes away, but the other pieces kind of still work, right? And so, and that's a big part of what makes modularity so appealing. And then the third, I guess in my mind, is the Cosmos Hub's launch of interchain security, right? Initially with Neutron and Stride, 2 very exciting chains that launched with the Cosmos Hub. And now, focusing on ICS v2, interchain security v2, to allow more kinds of chains to launch, even rollups. Rollups are chains too. They can post data to Celestia and get a sequencer or validator set from the hub. And so the hub's becoming the best place to launch a chain. That's our mission for the hub. But it's still a close friend of rollups, and it's kind of an enabler. And so hub was kind of the first to do all this like restaking stuff, which is now kind of dominating. It's coming back.
I remember back in the day, there was like a one-click Bitcoin clone, so you could get like a clone of a whole Bitcoin. You could pick like your proof of work, and you'd get a proof of work clone that way. But I guess none of those work very well. I think that the ones that you get now with one click are actually viable, and that's pretty interesting.
I mean, the difference being that you don't have to bootstrap your own kind of consensus network and security. Like we also have Hyperledger. You can also do,
You really don't want to be the weakest proof of work coin.
Yeah, exactly.
Bad recipe for disaster.
I mean, NiceHash was a great business.
Anything
you want to add?
Yeah, I don't know. I think So I've been spending a bunch of time with flashbots recently. I think it's really interesting how you can have changes to. You don't need to do everything through enshrining. I think doing things through sidecars is super interesting. Okay, but besides flashbots, I like talking about puffer finance. I think that this is kind of underrated. It's pretty fascinating what they do. This is an application of trusted hardware, so it is related to that. It's been known for a long time that trusted hardware can change consensus protocols. Like you can upgrade a non-fault Byzantine fault-tolerant protocol into, you can upgrade a crash fault-tolerant protocol into a Byzantine fault-tolerant protocol just by adding the T. It's like an anti-equivocation thing. But that's like, okay, if I'm going to build a consensus protocol, I could include this in it and have this kind of difference. But what Puffer does is really interesting. It doesn't require any change to the consensus protocol at all, but it's basically anti-slashing for delegated staking using trusted hardware. So if you're a delegated staking provider, your users have to worry that you're going to do something wrong and get their principal slashed. But if they can give you a guarantee, look, it's running in an enclave that can't possibly do anything slashable, that gives you a cool defense. That ended up being about trusted hardware, but really just sidecars was the point.
Look, we know you're the trusted hardware Trojan horse in every conversation. Don't worry. And I'm going to take a slight detour and ask the following very simple question, which is, what is your definition of an application? Because actually, 90% of this week, and this is a question that Tina came up with realistically, which is 90% of this week, everyone's talked about the difference between infrastructure and applications. But there's kind of this very blurry line, especially in the modular world, right? Where like if I'm launching my own chain, does that count as infrastructure? So what in your mind, what's like the definition of an application? And how do you kind of define the difference between the two? It sounds very simple, but I suspect everyone's going to have a slightly different answer.
I guess for me, my general definition, maybe it's not a strict definition, but it's a product that a user who's not a developer would use, and specifically use it not just for investing in coins. Like I think that's what people generally mean when they say there's not enough applications and too much infrastructure, right? Like I mean if you think about it, crypto does have mainstream adoption, just not in the way we think. Like a big portion of the US does have a Coinbase account and they own a bunch of coins, but the application right now is owning a bunch of coins and to hold them for their value. But I guess when people talk about applications is not just for investments, but they actually use them for things like payments.
But does that mean crypto has adoption or Coinbase has adoption?
I mean, both, right? I mean, Coinbase, if Coinbase wasn't crypto, it wouldn't be being sued by the SEC right now, would it?
Fair enough. I think it really depends on what level, because anything that's an application at one level could be infrastructure at another, right? I mean, Celestia at some level is infrastructure, but it's also, you could think of it as an application built with the SDK or an application built on top of general purpose computing in the first place. But otherwise, yeah, it seems like generally what maybe just beyond that, it seems like generally what people are talking about when they're talking about applications is like real world users doing not just financial things, which apparently there's no one doing here. Where are they?
Andrew?
Yeah, I think it's inherently relative. Every Twitter is a platform, and each tweet is an application that supports a like and repost feature. It's relative.
Okay. Well, I guess
but each tweet is a platform, right? You can stick an iframe in it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. well, I guess Farcaster one's a real platform. That one's a real platform.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not sure if Tina got the answer she was hoping for. So initially, I wrote this question with Anatoly in mind, so I'm going to preface it with that, which is everyone on this panel has a different view of the role of advanced cryptography in blockchains. Ethan gave a very strong defense of his view about half an hour ago, whenever he gave his talk, in terms of uses of TEs, ZK, MPC, and FHE. Just as a summary, Celestia is adding ZK accounts, which allows you to have stronger covenants about DA without making your virtual machine a lot more complex. That's my summary. Solana is adding ZK compression, which is really just for light state diff and cheaper state updates, realistically, from the way they want to use it. Ethan has been working on TE-based systems for credit, and Andrew's been working on TE stack of flashbots. So
And TE-based systems for credit.
TE-based systems for credit, sorry. Also that. And the one question I kind of think about is, like, are these uses of advanced cryptography sort of evolutionary advances? Like, they're more about optimizing an existing system and making it more efficient and safe and et cetera? Or are they actually revolutionary in that they're enabling a new application? And if it is, then justify with some examples that you think are important.
I guess I can only talk about my respective use case, or Celestia specific respective use case, which is ZK accounts. I think in the short term it's evolutionary, but in the long term it's revolutionary. Because in the short term it's just it's pretty much just making Celestia have the same functionality that you could argue Ethereum already has, which is the ability to have a trust minimized bridge between the base layer and the rollup. But in the long term, it could be revolutionary because ZK accounts allow you to have bridges between the Celestia L1 and rollups in a much, much simpler way. Specifically, it was previously thought that in order to extend the functionality of a layer 1, you needed to add smart contracts to the chain, and that's what Vitalik argued. Like, he had a blog post where he argued that because back in the day, like Bitcoin people were like, let's not add smart contracts. It makes the chain too complex, adds all these issues, and to some extent they had a point, right? Because it does add a lot of complexity to layer 1 that creates problems like MEV, state bloat, that kind of, and various stack vectors. But it turns out that you don't need to add smart contracts to extend the functionality of a layer 1 or to achieve what's called functional escape velocity. For the layer 1, turns out that you can just have you can actually have a on-chain account, like any normal account, but instead of that account being controlled by a public key, it can be controlled by a ZK program represented by a ZK verification key. And that allows you to achieve, in theory, complete functional escape velocity that gives you all the benefits of a smart contract platform without having any on-chain smart contracts. And I think in the long term, that could be revolutionary in the long run, because it avoids layer 1 from having all kinds of existential issues, such as MEV, which leads to block producers being centralized. And so you basically completely sidestep all of these issues entirely while having the benefits of functional escape velocity.
I guess in my case, I think Cycles is a revolutionary application. Of course, I'm going to talk about Cycles. But I do think in general, I mean, I agree with that point that the cryptography, ZK and others they're both evolutionary and potentially revolutionary in the long run. I mean, arguably the technology, the coordination technology we're building here in general is supposed to be revolutionary, but it requires some additional pieces to actually get there, it seems, and cryptography is required to fill that in. But we also think TEs are sort of part of that story. With Cycles, we want to build something that allows anyone, anywhere in the world to participate in clearing debt and to clear the most debt for the most people with the least amount of money. And that's revolutionary in the sense that it could like fundamentally change the structure of the financial system, which is primarily based around excluding all of you from being able to do clearing and allowing only the banks to get together and do clearing in their clearing houses. And it's not really feasible or possible to bring, the 200 million businesses or 6 billion, 7 billion people into a common clearinghouse. There's just too much complexity of financial contracts and overhead and counterparty risk and all this kind of stuff. And Cycles' design makes unique, it takes unique advantage of the properties of blockchains, atomic multilateral execution. It requires privacy, which today we can only really do meaningfully with this technology, whether it's a TE or in the future MPC plus FHE or whatever. It unlocks this kind of revolutionary use case that we can't otherwise do without it, right? People are always talking about, can't you do this without a blockchain? Is it just more secure, more open, verifiable? We can't actually do this without a blockchain, because you can't do atomic multilateral settlement pretty much without one, unless you're just like willing to trust tons of intermediaries. And so I think this stuff can be very revolutionary.
I'd say it's definitely revolutionary. It's hard to give a good example of something that no one would do without cryptography, because the limit of what you can do with cryptography is what you can do with a trusted third party, and people are often really trusting. They're willing to, share private keys with services to act as, custodians. But I do think that there are examples where actually people won't even trust people for it. I think Shin's demo is really cool because going through that forgot password flow, like that's what it looks like when you're falling for a scam. You're like giving someone your forgot password flow. And even besides the TEs, like just with TLS Notary, I don't think we've even yet scratched the surface of surprising things you can do with that, because yeah, obviously you log into your bank. Well, you aren't sharing that session with like a backup drive. You're certainly not sharing it with other friends and family. But you can now create notarized, encrypted logs of the transcripts that you've had with secure sessions with Web 2 apps. I think that's tremendously powerful, and I don't think we've yet seen all of the surprising things you can do with that.
Cool. So now that we've talked about advanced cryptography, we've also talked about applications. One of kind of I think starting with the app chain version of the world, one of the promised futures of the promised land was the migration away from the fat protocol thesis to the fat application thesis, where like each chain would be its own sovereign nation, generate a bunch of user flow, generate a bunch of application volume flow. But if I look at the fat application thesis in 2024, the modular ecosystem didn't accrue the actual value from it, right? Like the monolithic world actually owns the #1 consumer applications in crypto right now, which are meme coins. And if you think about things like, one kind of thing about the fat application thesis was you run your own chain, you get all these fees, and those fees could be much more than the base chain if it was a roll-up or other chain, kind of hub chains. But arguably the first network to really have an application earn more in fees per day repeatedly, consistently, than the base protocol was Solana with pump.fun, or continues to be nowadays. So what do we kind of diagnose as the reasons for this, and where do we think the modular world goes from here to try to regain its superiority in the fat application thesis world?
Well, for one, if I were Tolly, I would say Solana is a Cosmos chain, which he has said. And on a scale of 1 to Tolly, that's Tolly. And the idea behind that is that it's a chain focused on a particular outcome, trying to optimize for being the fastest synchronous composable platform in the world. And it seems like they're achieving that, and they're proving out the use case of that. In Cosmos we have Atom, which some have suggested is a meme coin for academics. I think that's you, right?
Yeah, definitely meme coin for nerds.
Which is was true in the past. Maybe it's less true now. Now we're a serious platform for launching blockchains. That's the Cosmos Hub. We also, Cosmos does have a meme coin chain called Chihuahua. I don't think this has been a success.
Just from the fact that we'll look at the audience reaction to that already says
Wawa. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't seem to be working. But
I think Bad Kids might be more successful than Chihuahua. To be honest,
definitely. Yeah, it's challenging to really understand. I think we're still early. We're only a few years into like application-based chains, and they are expensive and a big part of like the roll-up roadmap and Celestia's modular thesis, so that we can bring down the cost significantly. And so maybe once we start to see a lot of roll-ups, we'll start to see the way that they accrue value. It'll be they have to build useful apps. Right now, it seems primarily what people want to do is they just want to gamble on like a fast synchronous platform. And so Solana as app-specific chain for doing that, might just win that.
So you're saying Solana is going to be pump.fun chain soon?
It kind of is.
Is that what you're thinking? Okay, just make sure I have that one recorded.
I did not say that.
That is sort of the right. Yeah. That is sort of the fat application thesis, though, right? Like the application generating the fees takes over the chain.
Yeah.
Okay, Mustafa.
I love meme coins, but I guess like
what's your favorite meme coin? First,
my favorite meme coin right now, Pepe. Just because I think it's the Pepe that is most likely to actually succeed. The most recent, the meme coin that's the most recent meme coin that's likely to succeed, because I don't like meme coins for the casino aspect of it. For me, I like meme coin for like a very mid curve take, or potentially low IQ or even high IQ take, which is that why should
high IQ meme coin takes? I'm ready for it.
Yeah, which is that like to me, I mean, like since we got off the gold standard in 1971. Like, why should only nation states compete in meme coinery? You know, like, so, but for me, I don't like the casino aspect of meme coins. I want to see like sustainable meme coins, you know, like Dogecoin. That's a meme coin that has existed for many years, you know, and I think that's Pepe has a chance of doing that. But a lot of the Solana meme coins, as you said, has kind of been mostly motivated by like a casino style thing. Or like casino-style activities, and that's not what I'm interested in. Like, I haven't been in the crypto space, you know, since 2011 to build a massive speculative casino, you know.
My favorite meme coin is still CryptoKitties because it has a Dutch auction.
Okay, nice. All right. Do you have any view on how modularity takes? I'm waiting for the TE shill. That's really that's what we're here for.
I don't really have many like upchain thoughts in this, you know, fat app versus platform. What I would say is that I want to see more choice to users and more fine-grained choices, like as float close down to the edge as possible. So I like the idea of small apps having more control and optionality, including being able to like migrate with all the users intact to other platforms altogether. So I don't know whether that's a feasible direction, but that's what I hope for.
Cool. As we talk about the rise of, I guess, the applications in Solana, one interesting thing is that the modular world, I would say, has been, I wouldn't say isolated, but certainly shielded in a lot of ways from MEV in a way that Ethereum, base Ethereum, and Solana have not. You know, I think Solana MEV fees have touched $100 million a day in some days, so it's like it's one of the wildest markets. A lot. I mean, the Solana MEV market is honestly crazier than the Ethereum one nowadays. So what do you think the modular world can do to kind of take its advantage where it is actually somewhat more, quite a bit more complex for MEV extraction to take place? Not that it won't happen, it's just that I think there's many more steps you have to jump through. And how do you build applications that, you know, take advantage of that? You know, I think we saw a bunch of talks today that talked about that. I think Evan, I don't know where Evan is, but Evan used a picture of Max Resnick as a way to emphasize one of these. So yeah, where do you kind of view this kind of advantage that expanding over time, and which applications take advantage of it the most?
Yeah, I mean, I think applications are going to want to capture their own MEV and not dedicate to the base layer. And yeah, it is early in terms of roll-ups having the tooling to capture that MEV, but we are seeing some early products that allow that. For example, Skip is doing some good work there. They have like a Cosmos module that allows you to embed a sort of like private mempool that allows you to capture MEV. So I think in the future, when these tools become more and more mature, like deploying a DEX directly on chain or on the L1 will become insane, especially as the barriers between these chains become more and more abstracted, such that liquidity is not going to be fragmented anymore as chains. Having a DEX or deploying it, there will simply be no incentive to deploy a DEX on an L1 that leaks MEV to the L1. And so I think like in some way, like we're very similar mindset to Solana in the sense that I believe that all of the value, most of the value, should accrue to the application and not the base layer. But we kind of differ from Solana in the sense that we think that the order book or the trade does not need to be on a massive synchronous ledger on the L1. It can happen on an L2, and therefore the order flow can be captured by MEV on the L2, and we can still. And that doesn't necessarily have to be fragmented if we have good abstraction across the chains.
Yeah, I gave a talk earlier today called Defund the Dealers, sort of about how we can work towards changing market macrostructure and microstructure to essentially reduce how much can be extracted from users by moving from a model of liquidity providing to liquidity saving. And a big part of that just involves incorporating privacy and batching into the regular execution environments. And so long as that stuff is not there, there's going to be tons of MEV leaked. And I think, or I expect, that we'll see a lot more development and adoption of those kinds of technologies, maybe starting in Cosmos and Celestia rollups and so on, and then moving into of course, Flashbots is already trying to do this kind of stuff. But I think Penumbra just launched like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and it's based around this kind of idea that we can reduce how much we leak using privacy and using batching. And so I think there's like a lot of unexplored design space around that I'm hoping we'll see more people develop on.
Andrew?
Yeah, I agree. Privacy and batching are the keys, I think.
Cool. All right, so we got 1.5 minutes left, so I'll kind of go into...
Aren't you supposed to answer a question at some point?
Wait.
Ask him one.
What? Yeah, ask me one.
Sham Toli?
Sham Toli? Okay. You want me to ask myself a question and look like an idiot? All right, let's figure out which question is best suited for this.
Pass it to Andrew. Let him ask whatever one he wants
Whatever
from
you've written
there.
down.
Number 10.
All right. So this question is for Anatoly. Will Solana have
Hello,
a
I am
modular?
Anatoly.
Yeah. Will Solana have a modular ecosystem given the recent interest in restaking on Solana?
I think Solana will have some form of rollups at some point. I think there's actually been a big shift for applications there to kind of control a lot more, especially in light of the high MEV lately, and the fact that like certain applications have been crowding out other noisy neighbor problem type of stuff. I think the other thing is, the restaking stuff in Solana actually seems to be kind of an interesting gambit, because like initially it seems like, okay, well, what are the real applications, right? And ETH people want pre-confs and all this stuff that's, well, okay, Solana sort of already has in some ways, like at lower latency, but I think there's starting to be some interesting things, and we'll see some weird applications in next year.
Great answer.
And my fake toliness ends with the final question to Mustafa, which is, if that happens, do we do another modular versus monolithic panel, or is it all over?
I mean, if Solana becomes totally
Solana
modular,
yeah.
I mean, this is blockchain. Like there's always tribes, so even if everyone's modular, there's going to be like a Catholic version of modular. And a
Catholic modular. Yeah? We talked about religion in the last panel, about like praying to the destructive chips, and now we're having the Catholic modular chain. You heard it here first. Everyone dresses as a nun for Halloween. All right. Thanks, everyone.